thank you all very much for being here with us this afternoon. This is Tuba Christmas, an event that happens annually all across the United States, and I believe even in some places internationally. We'll talk a little bit more about why this happens every year in a little bit. But for now, I will introduce the instruments of the group to you so that you know what it is you're looking at. Here in the front, we have the euphoniums. Now, if you would kindly hold those up so we can all see them. You might have learned of these instruments if you were familiar with band in school. You may have heard them referred to as baritone horns. In this country, we use those two terms interchangeably. Technically, that's not accurate. The instruments you see in front of you are, in fact, all euphoniums. The baritone horn is a slightly different instrument that is used only in British brass band music. In the United States, we, again, use those words interchangeably. It doesn't matter if the bell is pointed straight up in the air or if the bell is pointed forward at you. It doesn't matter if it has buttons on the top or on the top and the side or on the front or whatever. They're all euphoniums. And then in the back, we have the tubas. If you would hold those up, please. As much as you can. Okay? So once again, it's a very varied looking bunch of instruments, except they are all essentially kind of the same. And if you were to look at euphoniums and tubas side by side, what you will notice is that these are half the size of the ones in the back. And that's by design. So the smaller ones up here in the front play exactly one octave higher than the ones in the back. And there's also one instrument that you may have noticed that's kind of differently shaped than the rest. And that one lives over here in the corner, if you would show us that one. Technically speaking, we call that a contrabass bugle. So that instrument was developed for drum and bugle corps originally. The newer versions are basically just tubas that you carry on your shoulder used for marching band. And so they are kind of the alternative to the sousaphone, which is the one that wraps all the way around your body that we use for marching band quite a bit. So that should familiarize you, at least in passing, with all the instruments on stage. There'll be a quiz later. No, I'm kidding. We will continue on with one of my favorite Christmas carols, O Come, Emmanuel. So my name is Josh Calkin. I'm the director of bands at Wayne State College, just over the river in Nebraska, about 45 minutes from here. I'm a tuba player myself and have been since I was, in 8th grade or so. I started on the trumpet in the 4th grade, but I have since graduated to a much better place and become a tuba player. This is like the time of year that we get to get all the tuba players together and like make jokes at other people's expense instead of being the butt of the jokes all the time. So that's the other thing that's super fun about Tuba Christmas for us. We'll get a little bit into the history of Tuba Christmas here in a few minutes, but I did want to acknowledge the fact that this is a very special year for us in the Tuba Christmas family, because this is the 50th year of Tuba Christmas. It is not the 50th year of Tuba Christmas in Sioux City. Tuba Christmas in Sioux City began in 1996, and I know that because Tom was at the very first one here in Sioux City back in 1996. Incidentally, that was also his first Tuba Christmas ever, which means out of everybody on stage, he has been doing it the longest, longer even than me, because I began doing Tuba Christmas in 1998. The first one was held in 1973 in Rockefeller Center in New York City. And so it has been going on continuously for the 50 years. And you will notice some people on stage are wearing some different colored hats and scarves than usual. We kind of departed from the red and the green. Now, of course, for those of you who are anniversary buffs, you will know that the 50th anniversary is the what anniversary? The golden anniversary. And so we brought out the golden swag for this year's Tuba Christmas. So next one on the program will be Joy to the World. So in order to really understand why this whole thing started, you have to know a couple of names. And the first name that you need to know is William Bell, or Bill Bell. We think of Bill Bell today as kind of the first tuba soloist. Before he came along, the tuba only ever sat in the back of the band or the orchestra and played oompa stuff. Now that's still mostly what we do. But occasionally we do like to kind of move the tuba up to the front, and it began as sort of a novelty back in Bill's day. And Bill was actually from Iowa. He was born in Creston and then wound up moving to New York City. He was a tuba player with the John Philip Sousa Band for many, many years, which of course led him to prominence in the music community. He also served as the tuba player with the NBC Symphony out of New York, which coincidentally enough is located, or their headquarters at the time were located near Rockefeller Center. Bill Bell was born on Christmas Day in 1902. And he had a very famous, or a student that would become very famous, a guy by the name of Harvey Phillips. Now, Harvey Phillips studied with Bill in New York, and he was also a very famous musician in the New York area before becoming a tuba professor at Indiana University, which we now know as one of the most premier music schools in the entire United States, even to this day. Now, when Bill Bell passed away, Harvey wanted to do something to honor his teacher. And I was talking kind of a little bit during rehearsal today about how important Bill Bell was. And we in the tuba community, if you take people who take lessons on the tuba, as I did, if you go to look at your teacher and look at who they took lessons from, who did they study with, and who did their teacher study with, and who did that teacher study with, all roads in the United States eventually lead back to Bill. Bill Bell was kind of the guy who started the whole thing. He ended his life in Perry, Iowa, after some long battles with illness, and he actually is buried in Perry, Iowa. And so if this is not enough tuba for you, and you want to go get a little bit more tuba in your life, take a drive down to Perry. Bill Bell's grave is very clearly marked there because he was so important to the musical community. There was also a Bill Bell themed tuba room in the hotel in Perry. So if you ever want a nice romantic getaway with tubas in your room, that's the place to go do it. The only place I know of. And so when Bill passed away, Harvey wanted to do something to honor his famous teacher. And so he got several hundred of his closest tuba friends together, and they converged on Rockefeller Center in New York City to play Christmas carols together. To arrange all the music, he hired a guy by the name of Alec Wilder, who was a very famous composer and arranger at the time. Anybody who did any popular music in the middle part of the 20th century performed Alec's music. Notably, people like, you may have heard of a guy called Frank Sinatra, for example, sang some songs that Alec Wilder had wrote. So he was very big in the New York music scene at the time. And so the arrangements of the carols that you're hearing were done by Alec Wilder for Tuba Christmas. And in a further little twist for Tuba Christmas lore, Alec Wilder died on Christmas Eve. So everything is very kind of closely related Christmas-wise. We will continue with the first Noel. things about doing this every year. And for the record, I don't fully feel like it's the holiday season until I get my Tuba Christmas fix. Again, I've been doing this since I was younger, put it that way. 1998 was the first one I played, and I'm an East Coaster. I never did have the opportunity, even though I grew up in New Jersey, I never went to the one in New York City, because I didn't start it until a bit later, and I was living in New England at the time. So my first Tuba Christmas experience was in Boston. Now you can imagine, you can do one of these Tuba Christmas events with as few as 4 people, and we have done that here in the past. I remember one year with the old music store that was on Nebraska Street downtown is where we used to have rehearsal for this way back in the day. And when I showed up, it was a crazy blizzard that day, and I just threw the truck in 4-wheel drive and said, I have to make it because it's Tuba Christmas, I have to go. And so I drove all the way here in the snow, and I got there, and there were 3 people ready to play. And it was like, okay, we need a 4th player, and luckily one of the other folks in the group was a music teacher, and I was like, could you please just run to your high school and grab me a euphonium, and we'll make this thing happen. So I've participated with as few as 4. The one in Boston is quite a bit different. I think when I was there, we averaged about 350 tuba players at that event. The Rockefeller Center one in New York has grown to be almost 500, but the record is still held by the Kaufman Center in Kansas City, which in the year pre-COVID, I think it was in 2019, they had almost 600 tuba and euphonium players show up and play. So if you can imagine what this sounds like with just under 40 players, having over 10 times or 15 times that many is quite an impressive thing. Participate in Tuba Christmas come from all walks of life. I myself, as I said, am a professional musician. I teach music at the collegiate level. I've been playing professionally for a number of years, more than I care to count at this point. We have some members of the group who are retirees, some of which who were or are professional musicians. We have amateurs in the group, people who only really, maybe they played in school way back in the day, and they just kind of dust off their horns once a year so that they can play Christmas carols together. We have students in the group, collegiate, and even high school, and I think even we have had middle school. We don't have any middle school students this year. We do? Hello. Woo! So there are also a number of people in this group who are kind of new to the Tuba Christmas thing. So if this is your first year playing Tuba Christmas, would you raise your hand? And because we are a very accommodating and welcoming bunch of people, are the tuba players, how many of you are not playing your primary instrument right at this moment? Yeah, they don't do trumpet Christmas for a reason. Well, On YouTube, there's a video called Why There Is No Trumpet. I highly encourage you to Google that when you leave, but do not turn up the volume. It will do bad things to your ears. One of the things that we really like about Tuba Christmas is it allows us the opportunity to play some things that we don't normally get to, i.e. like the melody, right? Because typically we sit in the back and we don't get to do that much. And you know, I have an album of a tuba octet, it's a thing, that says in the liner notes, who better to play music for you than a bunch of really talented musicians who never get to play the melody. Like they finally get to let it out, right? And really sort of be themselves. And that's one thing that we really like about Tuba Christmas. And I think what you hear is that the instrument is capable of a lot more than we typically give it credit for. It can play like the fast kind of light, sprightly stuff, and it can play the oom-pa things, of course, but it can also play really beautiful, lush chorale type things. And I think this next arrangement is one that demonstrates that really well. This is a Christmas carol not a lot of people know, but I think it's maybe my favorite one in the book. This is Lo, How a Rose E'er Blooming. Another thing that's really cool about Tuba Christmas and why I throw my support behind it so thoroughly. I'm in music education and have been since forever. I went to school and even like as a youngster I knew I wanted to do something with kids. And so I decided in high school I wanted to be a band director. It's what I wanted to do. and I went for my undergraduate degree fully intending to be a high school band teacher when I graduated. But then what happened was I got into college and fell in love with college music and decided that was what I wanted to do for a living. But I'm very fortunate to be in a position where I train future educators. We have a lot of students at Wayne State that go on to become teachers. Some of them are actually here. I have some Wayne State grads in the group who are teachers out there in the public schools right now. And Tuba Christmas is currently owned and operated by the Harvey Phillips Foundation. We lost Harvey a number of years ago, but his family carries on the tradition. And if you are going to do a Tuba Christmas event, you have to coordinate it through the Harvey Phillips Foundation. And none of the people up here are being paid, including myself, the person waving the stick. As a matter of fact, we all pay to participate every single year. It's one of the few times that I know I have to go to the bank and get 10 bucks in actual cash because I bring it in and donate it for my permission, so to speak, to perform with the group. And all of the music that is collected that goes into the Harvey Phillips Foundation is then turned around and put into music education. And so all the people up here are not only donating their time, they actually paid money to be here to participate in this. And it's a really great thing that the foundation does every year because as we all know, education needs all the help it can get financially in a number of ways. And so the ability for hundreds and hundreds and thousands of musicians to get together every year and throw money at education, especially this time of year, I think is a really great thing. So, tuba players and euphonium players, we like, again, to get together and do things that are different musically this time of year. But, as I always say, you can take the tuba player out of the band, but you can't take the band out of the tuba player. So, we're going to do an arrangement of Jingle Bells for you. If you listen closely, or even not so closely, I'm not even going to say it's subtle, there's a different piece of music kind of smushed in toward the end of the song. So, if you are a fan of band music, if you know it well, let me know at the end if you know what piece we have snuck into Jingle Bells. What was it?
Stars and Stripes Forever.
Close. Close. Directors. The National Emblem March by the great E.E. Begley. Yep, one of our really important marches. By the way, if you happen to know that march, what is the first melody in that march?
It's the national anthem.
Yum ba bum 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 bum. It's a version of the national anthem, which is where the title gets its name from. Remember that one?
Boot camp.
Just one more quick one for you before we take the show on the road, so to speak. Yeah, one of the great things about doing Tuba Christmas here is, and Tim is the organizer for this group, would you please take a solo bow? Thank you, Tim, for staying on the So one thing that we really like to do with this group that not a lot of Tuba Christmases do is we travel with it. So we have a real quick rehearsal for 2 hours in the morning, we do a performance here, and then we pack this all up and we travel. And typically what we do is we go to an area care facility, a nursing home, if you will. Unfortunately, the one that we were scheduled to play today had a COVID outbreak, and so they won't let us in. So we're gonna go up to the dunes and play at a pizza joint. And then we're headed to the mall. So if you want to head over and hear us again, we will be at Center Court at the mall here in Sioux City at 2 o'clock. Now, for what we refer to a group of instruments that are all kind of the same as tubas and euphoniums are, we refer to them as an instrument family, so to speak. So, at the risk of sounding really, really cheesy, but you know, it's Christmas, we're allowed to do that, right? From our family to yours, we wish you a Merry Christmas.